This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. It's my job to help you eliminate chaos and maximize profit in your construction business. I've got a great interview for you today with Kelly Hollatz. She is the founder and owner of First Star Safety. You're going to learn about how she started the business back in 2006, the industry that she came from and how very different it was, how her business really started from a conversation with a gentleman in a restaurant that she knew. You'll also learn about some of the life lessons and business lessons she picked up from being in beauty pageants, how she really didn't back down when she started her business because of her preparation. How did she maintain persistence? How did she not give up after being rejected by 12 banks? You'll find out what she means when she says in her company, the weak weed themselves out. You'll learn about some misconceptions a lot of people have about cash flow. One of the biggest disasters in her business that she narrowly avoided. You'll learn about the difference between being comfortable and complacent and why she says you should make it your strong suit to find your weakness. This is a great interview. You're going to get a lot out of it, and looking forward to getting this to you. But before we get started, I do have a couple of resources that I want to share with you. Have you ever wondered how the big, successful contractors do it? How do they grow consistently? Why don't they have cash flow issues? What are they doing that you're not? Well, I've put together a free video series that I want to get in your hands that has helped hundreds of people. It's called The Secrets of Successful Contractors. Here's what you're going to get when you sign up for this free video series. You're going to learn about some of the strategies that big contractors use that you may not know about. You'll find out how the big contractors grow their business without hiring more people. You'll learn how you can boost your profits without chasing down new customers. And you'll find out, if nothing else, if there's only one thing you get from this video series that's worth the time, it's the hidden costs that could be killing your bottom line that you don't even know about. So if you want to get your hands on this free video series, all you need to do is go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/secrets, and you'll get instant access to your free video series. One other thing I want to mention is an issue that I hear from contractors on a weekly basis. They tell me things like, Todd, we're busier than ever. I have more work in backlog. I have more employees, but we're not making the money we should, or we're making less money than we have when we had less work, or we're actually losing money. And I'll cut right to the chase. The problem is profit bleeds. There's plenty of profit in the projects, but that profit is bleeding out through a variety of ways. And what you need to do, if that's you, is you need to identify those profit bleeds and then put systems in place to eliminate the profit bleeds. If that sounds familiar to you, if you are losing profit, if you feel like profit is bleeding out of your projects, go back and listen. I want to tell you about two things. One, go back and listen to episode 156, where I walk through 8 profit bleeds that cause really busy contractors to lose money. Secondly, if that's you and you're concerned about that and you want to put together a plan to eliminate those profit bleeds, then let's set up a free strategy call. I would love to get on the phone with you, walk through some of those profit bleeds, and help get you started mapping out a plan to eliminate those profit bleeds. All you need to do is go to my website, constructionleadingedge.com, push the red button that says schedule a free call, and we'll get on a call, talk through those profit bleeds, and help you put together an action plan to stop that bleeding. All right, now without further ado, let's get to the interview with Kelly Hollatz. Enjoy. Okay, Kelly, thanks for being on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. First of all, just give us a brief overview of the name of your company and what kind of work you do.
Sure. I am the founder and owner president, janitor, everything else at First Star Safety. So we are a construction and traffic safety supply company based out of the Cincinnati, Ohio area, serving essentially the tri-state, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. But we do a little bit of work beyond that. We work as a subcontractor to general contractors doing the implementation, maintenance, and removal of traffic patterns. And we also are a retailer of everything traffic control and safety for construction sites. Orange barrels, cones, barricades, signs, sign stands, and personal protective equipment.
And approximately how many employees do you have, and how long have you been in business?
So I started the company in 2006, and right now to date, we have about 20 employees on board right now. A couple more will be coming back next week. Obviously, right now we're in a little bit of a different time, but things at our company are going along as normal. So as the construction season, as we like to call it, starts, we usually bring on a few more folks throughout the summer. So we have a few more team members joining us next week, and I think that'll put us a little over 20.
Okay. Let's go back to before you started your business. What were you doing before you started the company?
So I come from a line of entrepreneurs, if you will. My family owned butcher shops and meat markets. And so while growing up, I worked with my family. I really couldn't even tell you the first recollection of, being part of the family business, but virtually every member of my family worked for my father's company over the years. And so when I graduated from high school, I went on to college out of state in California. And after finishing there and moving back, I came back to work, and really growing up and, the kind of corporate events and catering was really all I knew. And my dad had kind of decided that it was going to be time for him in the near future to retire. And I really had all sights set on taking over his company because it was something that I loved doing and something that I really, really enjoyed. And I felt like I was really good at. And he and I didn't see eye to eye on all of that. And I found myself working as an event planner at a high-end restaurant selling their corporate caterings and offsite caterings. And while I was there, one of our regular customers came in, and he would chat me up quite often. And he owned a road construction company. And he had mentioned to me on several occasions, well, if you're ever looking for something to do, I've always thought that there was room in the market here in the Cincinnati region for, someone to go into business helping with traffic control. And so once I had decided that, I might need to move a little bit and set my sights on something else, and things really weren't going to pan out with taking over my family's company, my dad's company. And, I thought, what? I felt like I've had a career in one industry already. I was 24, and I just decided to make a move. And here we are today, 14 years later.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting, maybe counterintuitive jump from one industry to the other. Let's talk about that decision. What was your decision-making process?
It's kind of crazy. A lot of people, when I share my story with them, are just kind of beside themselves. Like, you did what? How did you, what? I get a lot of questions, but really at the end of the day, I figured, like I mentioned, I was 24 years old. I had finished college. I owned a real small house in Deer Park that I had bought with, put the down payment of my life savings in. I was well on my way to establishing myself as a young adult, and I really didn't have anything to lose. I had quite a few offers on the table, one from a pharmaceutical company, which, looking back, I probably could have made a great living at. I was in the final steps of interviewing with Procter & Gamble, and, again, another amazing career with a long-standing Cincinnati company. But there was just something, growing up in a entrepreneurial type family, there was just something that appealed to me about being my own boss. And looking back, a lot of my friends, their parents worked for, larger corporate companies and, bigger conglomerates. And, my dad always owned his own company, and I really don't know anything different than that. And the flexibility and, the life that it has to offer one, was just something that I knew and I was very comfortable with. So when this gentleman had mentioned to me on a few occasions, you should really look into this. You should do some research. You should think about it. I said, okay, I'll listen to you. And one time he had come into the restaurant that I had worked, and he brought some financials from years previous, some previous years financials of expenditures that he had, spent on safety, traffic control, personal protective equipment, other things. And he laid it out there for me. And he said, look, this is my one company and I do X amount of dollars a year. And there's 10 other companies the same size in our region. And if you were to get just a small percentage of our business, you'd have $1 million company on your hands. And when he started to put the numbers to it and started to, make things really click in my head, and I realized, this is something that could be absolutely feasible. And, I just decided to take a leap. It's not like I'm a lawyer or a doctor. I don't need a specific certificate or degree or anything. And no one was checking transcripts. And I remember sitting down and sharing with my dad. I'm like, hey, this is, I think, the direction that I'm going to take. And he really teared up. He said, if this goes wrong, I can't fix this for you. I can't help you. I don't know anything about this industry. But at the other end of it, I figured again, like I mentioned, I was 24, and if it didn't work out, which ultimately that wasn't an option, if it didn't work out, I still had time to rebound. But I also had some clients that I had done some corporate event planning for. And I reached out to them and asked them who they banked with and told them, my idea and that I had put together a business plan. And I really thought I was going to start this company doing traffic safety. And they had shared with me the name of their, various banks. And so I set up some appointments, and all in all, I went to 12 different banks in the Cincinnati area and showed them my business plan, shared it with them and my, vision and what I wanted to do. And it's funny because everybody just kept looking at me. Oh, well, you're a woman, and you're a woman in a male dominated industry, and you're a small business. I'm sure everybody wants to give you a loan. And that's just really not how it works. And I explain that to people quite often, but every single one of those banks, basically told me no, and frankly looked at me like I was crazy, because they really just couldn't, even though I, was told by many that I had an amazing business plan. And heck, even one business banker at a very large bank here in the Midwest region said, I'm not going to give you money to start your construction company, but if you want to go into business, helping put together business plans for people who want to go into business, I'll help you with that. And I was like, are you serious? So that was bank number 12. And I walked out of that place and I was quite defeated. But I had read an article in the Enquirer about a local business person who over time had taken a lot of chances. And one of the things that he had did, unbeknownst to his wife at the time, was he had taken a second mortgage out on his house to finance the growth of his company at the time. And lo and behold, I owned a small little house in Deer Park, and I had put my life savings into it, and I had built a little bit of equity up into it. So I ended up starting my company with a second mortgage that I had taken out on the house that I had in Deer Park. So it was $28,000, and that was all I could get, and that was all I had. And I figured at that point my house was tied up into it. So as I mentioned, failure was not an option, because I would, lose my home. So from that point forward, it was full steam ahead, and I really had to commit to, the idea and what I was going to do, and get down to basics and really grassroots efforts, and put my company together and share the good news and the good word about what my company, First Star Safety, that I had just formed, what we had to offer and what we were going to do. And I just hit the ground running and put my gym shoes on, or my work boots really, and went to the pavement and went job site to job site and business to business and job trailer to job trailer, and, told everybody who I was and what I had to offer. And here we are. So it's worked out so far.
Yeah. So a lot of people, frankly, would have given up after maybe the second bank and questioned, it must not be the right timing. It must not be the right idea. I must not be the right person. A lot of that. What did you do to persevere through that rejection? Did it did it ever occur to you that maybe it's not the right thing, or what were you telling yourself? Just talk about how you deal with that, how you deal with rejection and resistance.
Oh my goodness, Todd, you'd be surprised. In the 14 years that I've been in business and told this story a million times, I feel like no one has ever asked me that, and I've never even thought about it. I didn't really look at it as rejection. I really didn't. I just figured that we weren't the best fit, and that wasn't, because your banker is a very important person in your business and your business relationship and the relationship that you have with your banker. And I just figured these just weren't the right people for me. But, I've always been one to, when I was younger and, in middle school and high school and that, I did pageants, which I know a lot of people aren't on board with, some of the feminist movements and things, but I did beauty pageants, and it was probably some of the best life lessons that I ever learned was doing those pageants and going through those steps. And while my parents most certainly could have fit the bill for the sponsorship, they made me go out to local businesses and things. And I remember one time a gentleman, he had said to me, he said, "You have to be the most persistent 15-year-old I've ever met." And I remember going home and looking up what persistent meant. And I was like, yeah, you know what? He's right. I'm fine with being persistent. It's kind of that mix between persuasive and aggressive, right? And I was totally fine with being persistent. And, that's always carried me through. There's, if there's something that I want to do or something that I have my sights set on, there's no shame in being persistent and moving forward and trying. And, like I said, what's the worst that could happen? Then you just pick yourself back up and you start over again. And, a lot of people, I think, maybe give up too early, unfortunately. But, I think if they dig within themselves, they will most certainly find a resolve to help them push forward, and they'll find the right match for themselves and moving forward with their business, just as I did over time. And it really wasn't until just a couple years ago that I found a business banker that I really feel like I have a great relationship with. So, it was probably just meant to be that I floated through and did what I needed to do to get by, and here we are. So,
yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people quit before they even try, before they even get started. They tell themselves it's not going to work, and therefore they just give up, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then it's almost like people are looking for an excuse.
Certainly,
they're 82% sure it's not going to work out, and they're afraid of trying. And then they step out there and they get one rejection and they say, "Oh, I knew it. It's not the right time, not the right person, not the right blah, 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 blah." And they're like, they file it away. Well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I do have to go. I've got to go back to something. You said
sure.
You learned a lot of life lessons from beauty pageants. Tell me.
Yeah, truly.
I'm intrigued by that. Tell me, and I could see it, but I'd love to hear what those life lessons were.
Oh my gosh, the first pageant that I did, you as a young girl, you watch these things on TV and, and you see these women and they're beautifully poised and they're put together and well-spoken, and, who wouldn't want to aspire to be along those lines and to, present themselves as such. At least I would, I was raised to do so. And, I just thought that was a wonderful, exemplary, example of how a lady should act. And, even the first pageant that I had registered for, it was in Columbus, as many of them are. It's the capital and the center of the state here in Ohio, So I remember walking into that hotel ballroom and sitting down with 300 other young ladies. Now, half of them, this was their 10th pageant. Probably a good quarter of them, it was their first, just like me. And you could truly see the difference. And I remember just looking around that room, and I took every mental note that I possibly could. And I was just like, you know what? I have to step my game up. And, I looked at myself and I thought I was prepared walking into that. I was a 10th of prepared as some of these other young ladies were. And, one thing that I came away from that was, and similar to business and similar to, going to each of these different banks with my business plan, I didn't back down because I knew I was prepared. I knew that I had done my research. I knew I had the figures and the numbers and the forecast to support, not only establishing my business, but the growth of my industry. And, the fact that safety has done nothing but exponentially increase, especially since the 70s and OSHA and other things have come into play. And, that was certainly one of the life lessons that I learned from, being in a pageant. If you are going to succeed, you have to be prepared. And being prepared means doing your homework, doing your research, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears and everything else. And that's not in business, that's not in pageants, that's in everything in life. And, so beyond, being prepared, I felt I had the opportunity to walk in front of thousands of people in a swimsuit. I mean, if there isn't something to scare you into being comfortable in your own skin, so especially as a very formidable young woman and, an adolescent, there's a lot of things that can, sway one's opinion of oneself. And you just really have to believe in yourself to do a lot of the different steps and be a part of the different steps that, being in pageantry involves. And also the speaking and speech and, question components of it, just like we're doing right now. You have to be sharp and you have to be ready and be open and be willing to engage. And I think, unfortunately, and I get it, a lot of people aren't the extrovert that I am, but, it puts you out there. And, I basically, turning in those forms each time I did a pageant, I was signing myself up to put myself out there to sharpen my skills and to be more prepared and to, in turn, grow as a young lady into a better person and, the person that I am today.
That's awesome. I'm curious, are there any tips or tricks that you learned back in your pageant days that you use now, say when you're going to meet somebody for the first time, make a sales call, public speaking, any insider tricks that you can share with folks?
Oh, sure. So one of the one of the things that I used to absolutely do, and I learned it actually in a couple different, I had learned it in a speech class too later down the line, but so before you go on stage or before you go into an interview, these things usually happen at hotels or conference or convention centers or conference facilities. So you have like a ballroom type thing. And so you're usually lined up. My number one thing that I would always do, and I still find myself doing it to this day, just standing in a doorway, and you kind of just put your hands up in the doorway, right, kind of shoulder height, and you just push out on the frame of that door as hard as you can, for 10, 20, 30 seconds and breathe in and out as much as possible. But you push out as much as you can and you step away and you let your hands down and your arms kind of relax and they're kind of tingly. And you just let all that immediate anxiety and nervousness out and take a deep breath. And you just step through that threshold and, you're ready for something, whatever comes at you. So I do it still to this day quite often.
Love it. Fantastic. So obviously, not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like your background has really, it developed your confidence. And this is something that a lot of business owners, especially ladies who own businesses, young ladies, frankly, I've worked with several female CEOs. And if they're honest, they'll tell me that they're just not that confident and they would like to have more confidence. So
Certainly.
What advice would you give to someone who would just like to boost their confidence? What can they do?
Well, I think a lot of it, as I mentioned before, be prepared. If you're prepared, you can absolutely walk through that door and make that sales call and present that presentation or slideshow or PowerPoint or whatever it is. You can, share information about yourself, your organization, whatever you're there for, your mission, your cause, because there's nothing, if you're prepared, there really shouldn't be anything that anybody can throw at you that you can't handle. And you need to realize and be proud of oneself and be confident that you're prepared and you're ready for what's coming your way. And, say it at my office all the time as, guys are walking out to job sites and things, do you have your hard hat? Do you have your safety glasses? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I always kind of joke and shout, preparedness is the key to success. And I'm sure they're all tired of hearing it, but it truly is, in my opinion. If you're lacking in confidence, then let's not think of it as a confidence issue. Perhaps it's a preparedness issue. And I can assure you, if you spend a little bit more time, effort, and energy in becoming prepared, you will in turn be more confident.
That's great advice. That is great advice right there. So let's talk about being a business owner. There are quite a few misconceptions that people have about owning a business. And I'm curious, what was one thing that you believed to be true about owning a business before you were a business owner that you were surprised to find out wasn't true after you became a business owner?
Oh, goodness. I have a lot of other misconceptions. I didn't really go into it with too many expectations. Other than, I think the money component of things, there's obviously a ton of misconceptions in the general public and, for those who aren't in business, but, you don't really understand the whole idea of cash flow until you're truly managing that. And until you are truly managing,
Yes.
I started a company with $28,000. And while that is certainly a very handsome sum of money, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much. And, I didn't have money immediately. And again, 2006, we're still talking very modern times, right? It's, I didn't have enough money I couldn't afford a computer. I couldn't afford a phone line. I was lucky to be able to afford an office because my brother's friend owned a facility that I called it a glorified pole barn, essentially. It had a few hundred square feet front end office and 1,000 or so square feet of warehouse space. And, he knew me and knew my family and basically knew me and knew who I was and my work ethic and perseverance, etc. And, he leased me a space and he's, we made a deal, a gentleman's handshake, if you will. And, it was kind of, you take care of things when you can take care of things. So that certainly helps in the beginning when you have, family, friends and family and favors to call on. But, you don't really realize the cyclical nature of business, let alone construction business, where the majority of it works on, a term situation, whether it's net 15 or 30, or even some of these projects that we work as subcontractors. I have projects that we started 2 years ago that we still haven't been paid completely. And that's not of any fault of anyone else. These projects are still working. So, you don't really understand the full cyclical nature of the cash flow until you have to manage that. It's a lot different than that of a paycheck and a household and paying, utilities and income, working out your income and everything. So that was probably the most challenging part, aside from, and it's a hot topic now, and it was a hot topic then, finding qualified and beyond qualified. I can teach anybody to do what we do. The rest of my team can teach people to do what we do. Finding persons who are willing to actually put in the labor, finding personnel and loyal, dedicated, hardworking persons with a good work ethic that actually want to contribute and be a part of something. That's been very difficult because I have a great team of people around me that, I have a saying in my office, the weak weed themselves out, and they certainly do very quickly. But I have employees that have been with me 9-10 years, and those people are working really hard and they're truly dedicated. And I, as an employer who does the hiring, I owe it to them to find new team members and other team members that are willing to put in that same effort. So, I have a great core team, and it's been difficult to find people, but like I said, fingers crossed, we have a new employee, a new team member starting on Monday. And I'm always optimistic when they start. Everybody interviews and says that they're a great hard worker, right? So I have my fingers crossed and hope that we have a great addition to our team coming along. But, all in all, I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to staff your vision, your organization that is your vision, staff your vision with persons that share the same vision, and also managing the cash flow part of things.
Yeah, cash flow was definitely a big shock to me. I was ill prepared to manage cash flow back when I started my business. The other mistake I made was I assumed that if I did work, people would pay me for it.
Yeah.
And it just
doesn't always happen like that.
Not everybody pays their bills. It's so unusual. I want to go back to a statement you made with your organization. You said the weak weed themselves out. Talk about that a little bit. How does that work?
So we have a pretty fast-paced office, and we're in a obviously a niche. What we do, and we're in high demand, and our clients demand a lot of us. And as I mentioned, I have a team of great people that are truly dedicated to First Star Safety as an organization. And there are moments when I step back and reality hits me, and I think to myself, especially in Cincinnati, we have so many major corporations and Fortune 500 companies. So many of these young folks coming out of college or coming out of trade schools or even out of high school, they can get jobs at Procter & Gamble, General Electric, Kroger Company, you name it, down the line. There's so many big corporations here, but I am truly humbled when I put an ad out there or, something on Indeed or Facebook or LinkedIn that we're hiring. And, even anybody who sends me an application, it is truly humbling that there are persons that are willing to trust their livelihood and that of their family and children and, putting food on the table on something that I created. And that is, something that drives me every single day to do more and be better and be stronger and be more for all of them and our clients. So, we're kind of cutthroat, not everybody makes it with us because I have very high expectations. I have high expectations for myself. I have high expectations for my world, my family, my friends, my children, but there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion. It just doesn't, nothing short of create a stronger world and unit. And, the unit that we have within the confines of our office and facility are a group of great people that work super hard. They're dedicated to First Star Safety. They're dedicated to our clients. And, at the end of the day, they're dedicated to me. And I am just truly blessed that they are approaching their every day when they come into work. They're not just there to collect a paycheck. And, those who are brought on board and somehow slip through my, hiring process and come on board just to collect a paycheck, they find themselves not collecting a paycheck very quickly because that's not how we operate. I only want people who want to be there, people who are happy to be there, people who are happy to be a part of something successful because, I share the wealth. I am happy to, if you asked anyone on my team, they have not gone without raises and bonuses and other things because I can't do this alone. I started the company and it was just me, and I have two brothers. God bless them. They helped me and other family and friends. And they put in a lot of effort and shared a lot of their talents for, little to no money over, the first few years. But I know what the company's grown into today, I most certainly could not do this by myself. While I can absolutely do any aspect or operation within the organization, I can't do it by myself. And I, appreciate all of these folks so much. And like I said, I owe it to them to have team members who are on their team and a part of their team who work just as hard as they do.
Love it. Love it. You've created this environment that makes it very difficult for low performers to be comfortable in. Yeah. I want to get to, in a few minutes, I want to talk about what's the number one thing you look for when you're interviewing somebody. But before we get into that, I'm curious, has there been some mistake or a failure that you've made that set you up for later success? And another way to ask that question is, do you have a favorite failure of yours? Like, for example, my quote favorite failure was I got fired in 2010 suddenly. Actually, I got fired twice in 2010. Once laid off because of the recession. Second time, I got downsized. My job got eliminated, and it put me on a completely different path, and that really sucked at the time, but I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for what appeared to be a failure back then. So I'm curious, has there been anything like that in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people in construction can probably relate in the kind of construction realm of things, So here I was, like I mentioned, I was young. I was 24. I started this company, and I have a really one competitor in our area, and they had been in business for 28 or 30 years at that point. I don't even know how many. I was walking into business after business and company after company and job site after job site, and I kind of equate it to asking someone and say, hey, I know that you've drank Coke for the last 30 years, but I'm selling Pepsi and I really want you to try it and I want you to come on board, right? And so I was working so hard to share, just even get our name out there, the company, who we were, what we did, what we had to offer, our services, everything. And I was working so hard. But again, because I am a woman-owned business, there were a few opportunities for me to bend an ear or to, put information in front of certain people that I most likely probably wouldn't have caught their attention along the way. But one of those projects ended up being one of the biggest, I don't know, blunders, if you will, in construction in the tri-state area in the last, few decades. The second or third year or so into my company, I was approached by a company called Bear Creek Capital, and I'm sure
Kenwood
people
Tower.
will know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to do the rental of this barrier wall, and along Galbraith Road, they had the, I guess, blessing of Hamilton County Commissioner or engineer, Hamilton County engineer, I'm sorry, and all the other powers that be. And they were going to shut down a lane of Galbraith Road, which in that area of Kenwood is a lane of travel either direction and then a turn lane in the middle. So they were going to eliminate the lane going east, basically. And they were going to have all this barrier wall that they were going to, the orange and white, the portable temporary barrier wall. And they were going to use that for the truck lane and the dump trucks and cement trucks and, all the different construction traffic. Now, when it all was said and done, the amount of money that I would have been into it with product, just sheer equipment beyond labor and everything else, was probably upwards of $150,000. I didn't even have the wheels to get me there at that point. I would have had to work out a deal with a vendor or manufacturer, honestly, to extend me the credit to get that. But, their product would have been on the ground. And, I'm in the business of rentals. I make money when things are rented over and over again. So here I am, they're coming to me. They want hundreds and hundreds of pieces of this. It would be paid for in that one job. And then I would own it for the rest of, the duration. I'd be able to rent it over and over again. And, all in all, on paper, it seemed like a win-win deal. But again, I really would have had to extend myself, not only with a manufacturer or credit or, available credit to me. And I ended up having to tell them, even though, and they were a huge company, they were pushing me. Give us numbers. We'll do this. Help us. We want WBE involved in this so that we can have, show on paper, I guess, at the end of the day that they engaged women-owned businesses as well. And I ended up walking away from the whole thing. And I just told them, I said, this just isn't going to work out for me. And, it really came down to, I had a conversation with a business mentor of mine. And, while I want to do everything and be everything to everyone, one of the most important things that he had shared with me during that time was, know your capabilities And I simply, without overextending myself and really exposing, my entire organization that was just so fresh and new, I really would have overexposed myself and everything. And it just wasn't in the realm of possibilities. And I just wasn't capable of making it happen. And I had to let them know that. And they weren't happy with my choice. But all in all, it ended up being the best bit of advice that someone gave me. I listened to, and I've held on to it ever since. Because, I've had contractors along the way that want me to do things that are kind of out of the scope of my work. And, I really take that to heart, because if I would have really stepped outside of the box just to see the dollar figure at the end of it, it could have sank my entire company and dream and everything else. Because as we all know, that whole project, went under, and a lot of people weren't paid, and it went on to litigation for years and years and years. And a lot of people were paid 10 cents on the dollar if they were even paid that. And I am just so absolutely glad that I listened. It's hard for me to be quiet sometimes, but I was quiet and I listened and took that, advice to heart from that one particular mentor. And, thankfully it all worked out.
Yeah, that was great advice. So if you're curious, if you're listening and you're curious, that's an interesting case study. Was it the Kenwood Towers project?
Yeah,
Kenwood
I'm pretty certain. Yeah, I think that's what it's called now.
Yeah, but it was I'll give a brief recap. It's in Cincinnati. There was a 12 or 15 story mixed use commercial property. It had some retail on the bottom and office space on the top, and steel frame was up. Lower floors were occupied, had a temporary certificate of occupancy, and then it went into default. And there was exposed steel in the air for years. There was a tower crane for years. The site was just locked down. So if you're interested in a case study on how bad things can be, go look that project up. There's probably plenty of information about it. But that was like a worst case nightmare situation. Definitely.
I feel like the ramifications of that entire project are still playing out today with some of the tenants, and some of the different organizations who had signed on to become tenants. And Kroger outfitted an entire space. I mean, one of their best in the city, and it was a whole experimental situation. And, they did that with the intention of there being X amount of occupants in the office tower above. And it truly was a big eyesore in Cincinnati, but thankfully somebody came along and purchased it and finished it out. And I think everybody who's there is happy now, but I am truly grateful that one moment I did listen. Yeah,
great. That was a great move. Tell me about somebody who's had a significant influence on your career and your business. If there's one specific person, it could be an author, a mentor, a family member, a speaker. Who comes to mind?
Sure. Immediately, who comes to mind? There's actually two people. It's kind of personal and a little bit of a sticky situation, but no longer. But so, I mentioned that, I was working at a restaurant doing the corporate event planning and all of that when one of the regulars who had come in, who owned a road construction company, had, we chatted it up quite often, and he had shared, the idea of starting a traffic control company with me. His name is Bob Adlita. He owns here in Cincinnati, Adlita Construction and RLA Utilities and Buckeye Utilities. He really, obviously not only was he the person who gave me the, whole idea and concept, but truly helped me along through this whole process. And a lot of people in Cincinnati who know me know kind of the backstory. So after I ended up starting the company, he and I began dating and had a relationship. And it had a little bit of a effect on my company simply from the standpoint of, everybody wants to gossip and believe what they want to believe. And a lot of people thought that he was an investor in my company and that he funded the startup of it all. And that just simply is not the case. But, it did affect me in the sense that many of his competitors didn't want to do business with me simply from the standpoint that they thought that he was backing me financially. And in turn, them doing business with me would line the pockets of their competitor. And so it had a little bit of an adverse effect, but I would certainly say minimal compared to the amount of knowledge that he, has shared with me over the years. And, we are no longer in a relationship, and I'm since married and, have kids and happily married and moved on, but he's still one of my largest clients, his company. And he even last Friday, I called him and asked him about a particular project and a certain contractor. And, he has always been there. And I know he will always be there to answer questions, to help me push through. He is the one who gave me the guidance about the, situation with the Kenwood Tower. He's always told me, do what you do best, Kelly, just do what you do best. And beyond traffic safety and all of that, it truly does play into my everyday life that I do what I do best, because I owe it to everyone around me to be the best Kelly Hollatz that I can be. They give me the best of themselves, or so I hope. And, so he has been a fantastic mentor. And I know that his knowledge and experience is never ending. He started his own company 30 some years ago and is a thriving organization with, 500 plus employees amongst all of his companies, and does a great deal in revenue. And I know that, for the record, he never owned any part of my company. I've had to pull out paperwork and show that to people before, but I know he'll always be there. But beyond that, I guess lives are always intertwined. My husband is also another very influential person in not only my world and our family, but in my company. He works with me. And he's been in the industry for 30 some years. He's about 20 years older than me. But he and I met on a job site. And my company does traffic control for special events. And we do traffic control at the Kentucky Speedway. And when the Kentucky Speedway was purchased by Speedway Motorsports out of Charlotte, part of the sale of that the state of Kentucky allowed was that Kentucky would get their own NASCAR Cup race. And as many of us in the tri-state know, that was probably one of the worst days in sports, where thousands upon thousands of spectators sat on the roadway and the highway. But he was part of a team from Atlanta. He's from Atlanta, that worked for an organization very similar to mine in Atlanta, who took care of the traffic control at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So when the Kentucky Speedway was awarded the contract to come to Kentucky, the Cincinnati region, Speedway Motorsports asked them to come up to Kentucky and help us with all the operations of everything. And as I mentioned, it was literally the worst day ever. And I'm pretty much mama bear. So I had our whole staging area with tents and pop-up chairs, and I had waters and Gatorades and snacks and sunscreen for all my guys who were out on the road. And this man comes up, and I had never seen him before. And I asked who he was, and he introduced himself. And, he explained his name was Mark Householder, and he worked for, this company in Atlanta that does what we do down there. And he was brought up here to be a consultant. And as I mentioned, it was the worst day, one of the worst days for me ever, and that of NASCAR and sports in general. And I never forget, I sat there and he came by, and I told him, I said, I don't know who you are, but you need some sunscreen. And I gave him some sunscreen, and he came back by. And that's when cars started to stack up. And I looked at him and I said, because I knew it wasn't a traffic issue, it was a parking issue. And he said, don't worry, it'll all work itself out. You're not in trouble. because we have an owner of the job, if you will. We have an owner of the speedway that we have to answer to. And we all knew it was a parking issue, but I kind of moved forward, and I say this with the kindest bit of my heart. The general public is stupid, and the media was putting it out there that the traffic at the Kentucky Speedway, traffic this, traffic that, and nobody said anything about parking. And here I am, the lady who owns the traffic control company. And I just thought that was the end of the end. And he and I truly bonded over that day and didn't see each other for about a year or so. And I ran into him at a national convention, and we chatted a little bit. And he had said to me just on a whim, he said, listen, I'm recently divorced. My kids are older. I don't really have anything going on. There's nothing keeping me in Atlanta. I work for a family-owned company. There's really nowhere for me to go. He said, I've heard great things about your company. If you're really wanting to grow this thing, he said, I can help you. He said, I'd be willing to relocate. And about 2 months later, he came to Cincinnati and looked at our operation, and I ended up hiring him as our kind of head estimator. And it really, truly was a pivoting point for Star Safety, in the sense that, he brought about so much knowledge and so much ability to take on bigger and better and more difficult projects. And we could truly expand and kind of spread our wings and take care of so many more different things compared to what we had been doing before. And in general, he just brings so much experience as far as managing people and companies and crews to the table. And, his vast knowledge of, overhead signage and permanent installation of signage and guardrail and so many other things have really, truly attributed to a lot of the growth of the company in the last 6 or so years. So, while it may be the 2 greatest loves of my life, my initial mentor who kind of gave me the idea for the business, and my current husband, here we are. So
very cool. Great story. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting the whole love story, right? The whole background.
I got to tell you, that's the best answer to that question I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, it's all true. It's pretty wild how it's all happened. But as I mentioned, my mentor, Bob, he is still one of our clients today. Everybody always asks, does everybody get along? Everybody gets along. Everybody's happy for everybody. Life unfolds in front of you, and you just kind of take it as it is, and you move forward. And whichever direction you go, you have to be happy for everybody involved. If you truly love them, you do. And so, it all worked out.
Very good. Let me ask you this. If you could go back and give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. Calm the F down. No, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure everybody says this, but, talk less and listen more. But at the same point, sometimes you're not going to get anywhere unless you have to seize those moments where, those moments of silence where you have the opportunity to share who you are, your business, what you're doing, what you're trying to do. And if you don't have, if you don't share that passion, I go to so many networking events, and people go and they gravitate towards people that they know. And I get that. That's comfortable. But you're there for a purpose. And if you don't seize the moment to speak up and share with people who you are, what you do, what you have going on, it just, what's the point, So while I most certainly in my early 20s could have been a bit more reserved and quiet and what have you, I don't know how well it would have served me, because it's just my personality. But at the same point, I had to take the time to tell people who I was and what I was doing,
Yeah, they weren't going to come knock on your door. So
no.
Let's talk about, I call that the field of dreams, business development strategy. If you build
absolutely,
they will come. But it just doesn't seem to work that way. It seems like if you go out there and talk to them 8 or 27 times, eventually they'll hire you. That's kind of how it typically goes. Let's talk about being comfortable. All right. I work with a lot of construction business owners. Some of them are okay getting out of their comfort zone. Some of them, they're just not willing to be uncomfortable. talk about, like, is it, when you think of the comfort zone and being comfortable, what do you think? Is it a good thing to be comfortable? Is it a bad thing? Should you be constantly uncomfortable? Just, what do you think?
Well, I think, the other word that we need to discuss probably is complacent. A lot of people mix comfortable with complacent.
Okay, just talk about that.
Being comfortable is totally fine in my opinion, but the other part, because, there are people who, getting out in front of people, and as I mentioned, like networking events, it's just not their forte to stand in front of people and to, share the good word and to hand out their business card or a line card or something like that. The only thing I can say is, again, going back to being prepared. If you're not going to do it, you need to have someone that is a mouthpiece for your organization. So either you become more comfortable with it, or you go ahead and you put it in your budget to have a development director or someone, or an outside salesperson or somebody to be a part of your organization, because otherwise you're going to just, a lot of people sit back and they're just complacent with the progress that they've made. Me, I've never really been one to, be complacent with things. So I push myself because I want more. I get it. There are people that are in business and they have a company or companies or whatever, and they have a core clientele and they work for those clients and they get it done day in and day out, and they don't feel like they really need to pursue any other people. And that's fine. That's their company. That's what they need to do. But for me, I'm in business to make money, to provide solutions for my clients, to have a good time with my team, and to make some things happen, to contribute to our economy, to be a success story for small businesses, women-owned businesses, for my family, really. And so sitting back and being comfortable really just isn't an option for me. So I push myself. Now I get it. There are people who are just really aren't willing to push themselves. And if you're not willing to push yourself, then you should probably identify that, unless you're totally comfortable with the revenue that you're generating and the progress that you're making. But, if you want more and you don't know how to do it, you need to identify your strengths and find somebody who can help you get there. And there's no shame in that whatsoever, because again, do what you do best. If that's not your thing, if you're great at developing software or providing solutions in a different way or creating something, and being in front of people isn't your forte, I get it. I mean, everybody doesn't have to be everything to everyone. And, I think, unfortunately, people think as a business owner, you have to wear every single hat. While we most certainly wear a lot of hats, no one ever said you have to wear every single hat and be everything to everyone. Look at other nucleuses of, families and groups of friends. We all have core groups of friends, and there's 3, 4, 5, 10 of us. We're not all the exact same. Everybody brings something different to the table. And that's the same way that, businesses should be. A team to a business, whether it's 1 or 2 or 10 people, you don't have to. I think a lot of people just beat themselves up and say that they're, they're not meeting their own expectations or that of others because they're not fulfilling all of these different things. But if standing in that venue and at that networking event and communicating to others who you are and what you do isn't your strong suit, make it your strong suit to identify what your weaknesses are, and you'll be more successful if you identify those and you fulfill those needs, as opposed to sitting back and just waiting for yourself to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, I like that. Make it your strong suit to identify your weaknesses, and then understand you don't have to be the only one who can do something. You certainly don't have to be the best. I don't think you want to be. If you're the best person in your business at everything that you're doing, then you're probably the problem. That's kind of been my experience.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. I delegate I'm sure other people probably tell you I delegate too much, but I know that there are so many people within my organization that do so many other things better than I do, and I've taught them how to do certain things and they do it better than I ever did. And I'm okay with that because that gives me more room and time and effort and energy to grow in different aspects and grow the company in different aspects of things, and into different realms and there's different possibilities.
Good stuff. All right. So let's say you have an opportunity to spend a couple of minutes talking to a smart, driven high school student who's about to enter the job force. What is one piece of advice that they should ignore?
So I love this question because I think one of the cardinal mistakes that people say or advice that is given all the time is to do what you're passionate about. And let me explain, because I'm sure there's people who are going to roll their eyes, but understand, I'm not wildly passionate about orange barrels and traffic cones and signs and sign stands. But what I am passionate about is, or what I was and what I am today, starting a company, growing a company, accruing clients, providing solutions, providing safety solutions, and solving problems. The success for what I do comes to me when a client calls me and says, Kelly, we're working at this intersection downtown and it's really tricky because we have to bring in a crane and we have to do this and we have to do that. And there's traffic and there's people and we have to do all of this to adhere to the requirements of the permit. And I tell them, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And we put together a plan and we give them that plan and they walk into the permitting office for the city of Cincinnati and their permit is issued because they have a plan that the city knows there's a contractor behind that can fully execute and they have a solution. And so, everybody that I've ever heard, even books and things, they say, do what you're passionate about. I get that. But you know what? If everybody did what they're passionate about, every person who could bake a really good cupcake would have a bakery. And we've seen that boom in our economy, and everybody who could make this really well would open a boutique. And we've seen that, and boutiques have closed. And that's what brought about Etsy. And Etsy's a beautiful thing. And there are people who have full-time jobs, and it is a lot of people's full-time jobs to sell things on Etsy. But there, you can have that balance in your world where, if you're crafting something, you can certainly be passionate about what you craft or create, but, you don't have to. I've talked to different high school students and those in college, high school students, namely at like career days, and they're sitting there like boggled. Their mind is just turning, but I'm not really super passionate about, because so many people think about creating something or making something or inventing something. So you don't have to be wildly passionate about that. Be passionate about, providing something and a solution and being a part of something. And I think that so many people get hung up on that word, what are you passionate about? And they put a tangible object on the end of it. And to me, again, I'm not wildly passionate about orange cones. That would be the tangible object. I'm passionate about being successful. And so, I challenge a lot of young folks when I speak at, career days, and just most recently at the Carl Linder College of Business at University of Cincinnati. I had the awesome opportunity I have a degree from UC, to return to the College of Business and to speak to a whole auditorium of, budding business persons and entrepreneurs and explain kind of, I know it's a very unique take on things, but my outlook that, it doesn't have to be a tangible object or product or something that you're passionate about and create, but, think about what you want to accomplish, really. I think that people should change the whole do what you're passionate about to what do you want to accomplish.
Yep, absolutely. I think, well, I ran a sewer rehab company and we worked in sewer lines. And I went from literally building a $70 million high rise to working in old sewer lines. And I had to figure out what is it that really drives me here. And it was about building the team, about solving problems, about putting systems in place, taking care of customers. I think you could get excited about building a team of people in an organization that makes toilet plungers or spatulas, really boring stuff. But you can, if you look hard enough and you dig hard enough, you can get excited about the entrepreneurial part of it. And
Absolutely.
it's not so much about what you're actually creating. It's about not the product you're putting in place, but it's probably more about what you're creating, the impact you're having on people's lives. That's what really got me excited was if I could grow the company, I could hire somebody and I could potentially create an opportunity that would change the trajectory of their entire family's life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of stuff that's a little bit easier to get excited about than fixing a sewer line. So,
Well, I mean, think about all the aspects from taking it from point A to Z. I mean, there's so many steps along the way.
hmm?
So yeah, absolutely. There's so many other things that go into it.
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned I wanted to ask you a question about your interviewing approach. What's the number one thing you look for when you're interviewing a potential employee? Either something good you're looking for or a red flag you're looking for, but what is the number one thing that you always look for when you're interviewing a potential employee?
I would certainly say their willingness to be open to not only just construction, but traffic safety in general. I mentioned Bob before. I remember him telling me, I mean, I went from planning $50, $60, $100,000 corporate events. I mean, these are glitz and glam and flowers and glitter and fabulousness, right? He looked at me and he's like, now listen, construction isn't going to be that glamorous. It's not going to be that fabulous. It's not going to be that over the top, but you could probably make a really good living. And, I think you could make a good go at it. And, I kind of watch and wait and see, especially when it comes to salespeople, because, there are a lot of sales positions with a lot of corporations that pay huge six figures, and up, especially, pharmaceutical sales over years and other things, a lot of suppliers and that. There's a lot of people that make an amazing living doing that kind of sales. But is someone willing to, like I said, put their boots on and hit the ground running and go to job sites and be a part of that? So I feel like I have a really good eye for persons who are going to blend in well with our industry, or even if they would. And some stick out like a sore thumb, but some of those people are willing to do everything. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that willingness to be a part of our industry because, there are some negative connotations to construction. Unfortunately, it's associated with lower socioeconomic class, lower level of intelligence, especially at a laborer's level. I mean, I have people on my team that are making very, very good living and supporting their family, being a dedicated team member to First Star Safety and working as a field laborer. And they have great health care and retirement plans and other bonuses and perks and things. There's absolutely no shame in what they're doing. So when I'm interviewing people, I'm really looking to see if this person's going to be somebody who I think can hack it on a construction site, hack it within our building, and then not think that they're too above being a part of construction in general, really.
Love it. Good stuff. What is something that you believe to be true about business that some people might think is unconventional or even a little crazy?
Oh gosh. I don't know. Unconventional about construction?
Just about business in general.
Or, I mean, I think it'd probably go back to the whole, people think that, I think a lot of people have the misconception that anybody who owns a business is just sitting back and rolling in all kinds of cash. Now don't get me wrong, I can support my family, but, are we sitting here just printing money? Absolutely not, And I think there are misconceptions from those who are in my own family and friends. And, I try to participate and be a part of a lot of things. I'm sure we've all seen the meme on, Facebook and other social media. When was the last time Amazon sponsored your kid's soccer team or whatever it is? I think a lot of small business owners are looked upon to do so many things for their community. And I feel like a lot of people think that we're sitting flush, and while things may look, or while we may be providing for our own families, it doesn't mean like we're sitting back on a pile of cash, because that's just not the case. And the United States is like 80% of the United States is employed by small businesses, by the government standards, the 500 persons or less. But there's just, I think, a lot of companies that are not, I don't know how to put it without being rude. I don't know.
Gotcha. So imagine you're at an event, you're at a networking event. Somebody comes up to you and says, Kelly, I'm so excited. I'm planning to start my own business. And you could only ask them one question that they really need to think about. Mm-hmm. What would that question be?
I would think, well, there's quite a few questions. The ones that come to mind, obviously, the why, who, what, when, how, all of that. But I think a lot of people don't really identify who. They want to know, they identify why, and they identify how they're going to do it. But I think a lot of people don't identify who they're going to serve and who their ideal clients are, and their client, and why those people are their clients. And what void are they fulfilling in the market that their supposed or potential competitors aren't fulfilling? But what clients are you going to take care of? Because, if there's a need in a market, I can almost, unless it's an invention or of some sort, I can almost guarantee you it's being served somehow. So a lot of times people come up with, well, my potential competitor isn't serving the market well, or isn't doing this, or isn't doing that. And, I don't think a lot of people identify the who. And if they do, it's not a very strong identifying. You have to have, as you mentioned earlier, you have to go and knock on a lot of doors, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 times, whatever it is. You have to get in front of that who a lot for them to come on board and spend some money with you and, help you generate revenue.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's a great place to start. Who is your ideal customer? What are they concerned about? What problems do they have? And what I see about your background is you weren't passionate about traffic, but you were passionate about solving problems, and you identified a need. There was a demand. People were already spending money on it. And you said, yeah, I think I can solve that problem. And one of the issues that I see, one of the mistakes I see a lot of contractors make is they're passionate about this idea, this particular hammer that they like to swing, or this particular nail they like to drive. Then they go out and try to find somebody who's interested in that. And that's a tough business. Maybe it works, but I think it's a great approach to start with who and then work backwards from there. So, well, this has been fantastic stuff, Kelly. I really appreciate it. I want to be a good steward of your time. If people want to connect with you, follow you, whether it's social media, websites, etc., where's the best place for people to go?
So one of my biggest pushes lately has been social media. So you can find us for Star Safety has a Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. First Star Safety, the company itself, has one. And then I comment on all of those all the time, so they can see those and connect with me through LinkedIn, send me a message through really anything, any of those social media platforms. And I am the one who takes care of all of those and controls those. So I would be the one who would get the message immediately. So, and then also through our website, firststarsafety.com, there's a form that they can fill out, and that form actually comes directly to me. So if anybody has any questions or wants to throw in an application in the ring, if they want to throw their name in the hat, we're always accepting applications, and I'm always looking for amazing people who want to be a part of our team and help us grow, because there really aren't any limits to what we can do and where we are. So we're happy to, meet if the person's special and right and at the right point in time, I'm happy to bring them on board and go from there.
Fantastic. Sounds like a great organization, great opportunity. So thanks so much, Kelly. This has been great. Just so much great advice, so much great insight, great story. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it too.
There you go. Hope you got a lot out of that interview. Be sure to follow Kelly Hollatz and her company. Connect with her. Take advantage of the resources that she shared. Connect with her on social media. Don't forget, if you want to get your hands on those free video series, The Secrets of Successful Contractors, you can go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/secrets. If you want help identifying the profit bleeds in your business and eliminating those profit bleeds, let's get on a free strategy call and we'll figure out what those are. And I'll help you map out a plan to eliminate those profit bleeds so that you can hoard the profit that is in your backlog. As always, I appreciate the ratings and the reviews. If you get some value out of this podcast, if you wouldn't mind taking a minute or two and leaving a rating and or a review on your podcast player of choice, I would appreciate it. That helps get the word out there. And if you have any questions or you need some information and sending a text would be more convenient for you, send me a text, 859-667-2015. Let me know what you're looking for, whether it's profit bleeds or secrets, or if you want to talk to me about setting up a call, you can do that. And if you want to schedule a call with me, then go to constructionleadingedge.com and click the red button that says schedule a free call, and we'll talk about those profit bleeds. Or if you need help putting systems in place or eliminating chaos in your business, whatever you need help with, I would be glad to help you out if you own a construction business. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Todd DeWalt from constructionleadingedge.com. I will see you next time.